Welcome to the pattern making program for LLumar's paint protection film. CP Films Incorporated, the world leader in glass treatment films, is continuing its product expansion by introducing LLumar paint protection film, the first optically clear paint protective film for automobiles. The product is designed to offer a removable, virtually invisible shield against the scratching, chipping, and minor surface damage that mar auto paint finishes. The product's extreme flexibility allows it to be installed seamlessly over far greater areas of radically curved body surfaces than any competing product. This video will demonstrate techniques to make patterns, allowing you to store these patterns in your own library for future use. Cutting urethane film directly on the vehicle is not recommended to avoid potentially serious damage to clear coatings and auto paint. Using a pattern on a glass-topped cutting table to cut your film kits speeds the process and helps assure a safe installation. Remember, too, that LLumar paint protection film is intended only for original factory equipment painted surfaces. It should not be applied to areas that have been repainted or touched up on an aftermarket basis, or paint damage could result. Areas typically covered in a standard paint protection kit include the upper 30 to 40 centimeters of the hood, the front fender areas, bumper, and side view mirrors. These are all areas that receive the greatest impact from high-speed sand and gravel. Of course, many consumers ask about more extensive coverage, including the areas around the doors handles and the rocker panels to help protect the paint in these areas from mechanical abrasion and road chemicals, and this is an opportunity to increase your sales by providing this extended coverage. A common question, though, concerns headlamps. Many dealers are successfully installing paint protection film on these plastic surfaces, though such installations are not covered under the LLumar warranty. Paint protection film cannot provide assurances against breakage of these plastic lens covers, and the long-term consequences of installation on these surfaces have not been studied. Moreover, in some legal jurisdictions, the application of these films to headlamp surfaces is not permitted. Therefore, application on these surfaces must remain, for now, outside the scope of the manufacturer's warranty. Overview: Tools and Procedures. Pattern cutting can be a challenge and sometimes take more time than the installation itself, but a general understanding of the basic principles and lots of practice will accelerate the process. Before studying the many details, let's quickly get an overview of the whole process and the basic tools and supplies you'll need. The painted surfaces we'll be making patterns for will need to be thoroughly cleaned with film on and 35% alcohol solutions, the same mixtures we use for installation. The areas should be as thoroughly cleaned as if we were installing film. All areas must be dried with paper towels. A medium tack transfer tape, a special self-adhesive paper, will be unrolled across the area and smoothed down into place. With a carpenter's pencil, we'll trace the outlines, taking advantage of the body lines themselves. With scissors, we'll cut away the excess material. As we lift away the pattern, we'll need to spray the adhesive underside of the transfer tape with film on to prevent it from sticking to itself or to the cap sheet of the urethane film we'll be cutting. We'll transfer the pattern to a glass-topped work table long enough to accommodate the longest bumper pattern, sometimes 3 meters in length. In advance, we've laid out and clamped down our piece of urethane film with the cap sheet facing up. We'll spread out and smooth down the transfer tape, wet with film on, to help prevent aggressive sticking, and then proceed to cut the pattern with an Olfa knife, making note of any adjustments to accommodate for necessary stretching of the film during installation. You will want to have available standard cutting aids such as a metal straight ruler, a 60 centimeter French curve, and an easy-to-construct flexible bow guide to trace long, sloping curves generally needed for the hood areas of most vehicles. After you cut your components with the paper pattern, you'll want to install the piece to be sure they work well. If satisfactory, label and store the cap sheets in your growing library of patterns for future use. You can make more permanent patterns by tracing the shapes onto stiff plastic sheeting material. Let's turn now to the details of pattern making. Surface preparation. Most customers will want coverage for the hood, fender, bumper, and side view mirrors. Let's begin by cleaning the surfaces of these areas. This will help the masking paper material adhere well to the car body. Starting with a vehicle that has been freshly washed is always ideal, since this will best remove the dirt hidden around light fixtures and grills. Spray thoroughly the area with the alcohol solution, and then with an equal amount of Film-On solution. The alcohol will remove the wax and oils, and the Film-On will help prevent surface abrasion should fine dust be present on the paint. Use paper towels to gently wipe dry all areas. Hood pattern. Let's begin with a detailed look at the standard method for making a hood pattern. Unroll the masking paper across the hood area. Cut it off at the needed length. Lift up and stretch out the paper so that it lays down as smoothly as possible. Use the Teflon edge squeegee, we will call it simply the hard card, to begin to smooth down the masking paper. Begin in the center, slowly work your way toward the edges. Lift the paper again, as often as needed as you progress across the hood, repositioning it to keep it stretched and smooth as possible over the widest area. Repeat this process for the opposite side of the hood. After the masking paper is smoothed down over the hood section, use the edge of the carpenter's pencil to trace the outline of hood edge. Cut away the excess masking paper with scissors. You should avoid using an Olfa knife to prevent damage to the vehicle. At the work table, unroll the length of urethane film you'll need. Be sure the cap sheet is facing up. Use clamps to hold the film in place during the cutting process. Begin to lift away the pattern from the hood. Spray the adhesive underside of the pattern with Film-On solution to prevent it from sticking to itself or to the urethane cap sheet on the work table. Carry it to the work table and smooth it out using the hard card as a squeegee. Note that the bottom edge of the hood is curved. We want to match this curvature along the top edge of the pattern, and we will do this as follows. With your pencil, measure up from the bottom edge the desired height of the piece, usually about 30 centimeters. Make the first mark at the farthest point along hood that forms this continuous curve. Make the second mark at 30 centimeters up from the midpoint. Mark the third point opposite the first mark. We must draw a curve that matches the curve along the bottom edge, but is 30 centimeters above it, a smooth, curved line that passes through the 3 pencil marks. We'll use the bow guide, a tool invented by the Technical Services Group of CP Films, as our curved ruler. Flex the bow guide into a curve that passes through the 3 points, matching the curved bottom edge of hood. Adjust the chain in the slip notch until the desired curvature is obtained. Use the pencil to trace the curve. Drawing the pattern this way yields the most professional and aesthetically pleasing results. You can now begin using the Olfa knife to smoothly cut through all layers of material. When finished, pull away the paper material. Use a felt-tipped marker to label and store the cap sheet for future use. Be sure to include the make, model, and year of the vehicle, as well as its location on the vehicle. Note that in this model, we have not cut the pattern short to allow for stretching. Often, hood patterns don't need to be cut short. The reason is simple. Note that we have allowed the masking paper to bridge over this depressed area. The urethane film itself will have to be pressed down into this valley, shortening the actual length of the film. In this case, this is just enough to permit sideways stretching to eliminate fingering on this compound curved surface and fit exactly edge to edge. Side view mirror. Making a pattern for a side view mirror is fairly easy. What can make this a somewhat difficult installation is the more extreme curvature of these streamlined surfaces. Lay out the masking paper in the usual way. Use the smaller chiseler tool to press down the paper, beginning in the middle and working out to the edges. Lift, stretch, and reposition the paper as needed. Press the masking down all the way to the edges. This piece will have to be significantly stretched in order to lay flat. So, we will have to cut away between 1 and 2 centimeters of the material in the middle, removing a vertical strip of material, as indicated here. During installation of the urethane film, extreme lateral stretching will cause the fingers or film darts along the top to lay flat, and at the same time restore the film to its original length. How to easily remove this thin strip of material will show in the course of the next section concerning bumpers, generally the most complex of all patterns. Front bumper. Bumpers, quite obviously, are often the most difficult component because of their extreme wraparound curvature and many cutouts. Sometimes, patterns must be made and installed in separate sections because of deeply indented dividers. The front bumper is often the most complex component. Study its structure carefully in anticipation of the needed coverage. The masking paper will be stretched across the bumper and will angle down on the left and right ends. So we need to be sure that we begin high enough to cover the extreme corners along the top edge. Some splicing will be needed at key points, such as here at the fog light border, and perhaps here in the middle under the front grille. Let's begin by unrolling the masking paper across the bumper as shown. Don't worry about being precise. We will need to make repeated adjustments as we proceed. With scissors, cut away the piece from the master roll. Check the positioning of the paper in the middle for sufficient coverage along the bottom. If you are satisfied, begin pressing down the paper with the hard card, beginning in the center and moving gradually outward to the left and right along the top. As you flatten the masking paper, it will become apparent if the paper needs to be repositioned. Note the beginnings of a crease line here. Lift the paper and reposition accordingly. Make sure the back side of the adhesive paper does not touch itself. Continue pressing down the masking paper along the top edges of the bumper. The creasing along the top edge that may be occurring as we move around a sharp bend in the bumper is not a concern. Pattern adjustments will be made to compensate, as we shall soon learn. On this vehicle, continue smoothing down the paper around the front grille. Because of the gathering material that is beginning to occur, make a cut from the bottom at the middle of the grille. Cut along the grille face as shown and down the left side. If the slope of the inner surface of the grille frame is quite vertical and therefore exposed to road debris impacts, will want coverage along this lower bar. Making a small slit here along the left edge will allow the paper pattern to lay flat to the inside. Later, we will continue cutting out this area to the right, as we have just done on the left. But for now, let's move on to the left, cutting around the fog light area. We'll need to make a diagonal relief cut here. This will allow us to reposition the paper and smoothly press it down from where we left off above. After getting the fog light perimeter down flat, we can lift the remaining section of the pattern and reposition it smoothly. We can now cut around the side signal light, gently cutting through the paper with a knife point. This will allow us to press the paper flat around the light using the hard card. We can now return to the fog light. Cut along the top with the scissors, but the inner vertical flap will want to lay flat, as demonstrated here. We need to be more precise with how the pattern will lay down here. We can actually add material to the pattern by first marking the line with masking tape. Now, we can simply add a piece of masking material to fill the gap, and tape it down securely to the main pattern. Use a pencil to draw the line where the edge of the film will be. The lower piece of the pattern can now overlap the first, and the line redrawn to indicate exactly where the splice line will be, where two pieces of film will rejoin during the installation. Cut away excess material as shown. Make relief cuts along the fog light edge, and reinforce the regular masking tape to prevent tearing when we remove the pattern from the vehicle. We can now trace the desired remaining border of the fog light. Returning now to the splice line at the bottom middle of the grill, we need to indicate clearly where the splice is going to be located. Make a vertical pencil line, tape over the joint, and retrace the pencil line on this layer of tape. Press the masking paper down with the chiseler hard card. Remark the splice line with a pencil line, and finish tracing the inner border of the grill frame. Let's watch the tracing process, greatly speeded up. The area around the turn signal light should be reinforced with tape to prevent tearing when the pattern is removed. Now finish the pencil tracing around the light. Removing sections to allow for stretching. Because the urethane film will have to be significantly stretched, we must mark the pattern where strips must be removed, and these areas must be carefully selected. The left side of the tape here is centerline of the bumper. We will need to remove about 2 to 2.5 centimeters from the middle of the pattern. We'll do this on the work table in a few moments. Likewise, We will need to remove material around the corner of the bumper. Since the paper pattern is bunched up here between the points indicated on the screen, the corresponding amount of material will have to be removed so that during installation the film can be stretched flat around this curvature. Use narrow masking tape to locate the area where material must be removed. About 1.5 to 2 centimeters will need to be removed, and we will do this on the work table. You need to mark the corresponding location on the opposite side of the bumper. The amount of material that must be removed can be accurately determined by marking 2 points, here and here, and measuring the distance between them. Write this number on the pattern. After we lay out the pattern on the table and pulled apart the bunched up paper between these 2 points, we can measure the distance between these 2 points. The difference between these 2 measurements is the amount of material that must be removed to allow the film to be stretched flat in this area. With all the pencil tracing complete, cut away the remaining excess masking paper with the scissors. Now measure the overall maximum length of film we will need to cover the bumper. Unroll the urethane film across the work table. Be sure the cap sheet is facing up. The cap sheet should always be on the exterior surface of the roll. Use the squeeze clamps to lock the film to the table. Measure the needed length and cut away the piece from the roll. As we begin to gently pull away the pattern from the bumper surface, spray the sticky adhesive side with Film-On solution to keep the pattern from sticking to itself or back to the car paint. Be slow and careful to prevent tearing the paper. Carry the wet pattern to the glass top work table and smooth it down in place. Complex patterns such as this will take time. Always begin in the middle and work out to the edge areas as though you were installing the film itself. Do not rush this process, since an accurate layout of the pattern is essential to the ultimate accuracy of the final piece to be installed. Let's begin by marking the pattern for the areas that need to be cut away. First, draw the center line. This will be the actual cut line. On either side of the central cut line, measure out half the distance of the width of material to be removed. Lift up the pattern and spray with Film-On. Cut along the central line. Slide the detached part of the pattern over the other, so that the 2 outer lines precisely overlap. The masking paper is semi-transparent, allowing you to see through the bottom layer. Tape the 2 pieces together securely. Repeat for the opposite side. We also need to remove about 1 centimeter of material from under the midsection using the same cut and overlap technique. We also need to remove about 1 centimeter of material from under the midsection of the fog lights using the same cut and overlap technique. With a fresh stainless steel blade in an Olfa knife, we can now begin the final step of actually cutting out the urethane film itself. Press firmly and use a low cutting angle. If you don't feel you have a steady enough hand, take full advantage of straight or curved cutting tools such as the standard aluminum straight edge or French curve to guide your knife cuts. When finished, simply pull away the paper pattern and keep the cap sheet for future use. When satisfied with the fit, some dealers make more permanent patterns from stiffer plastic sheeting and build a library of complete kits. This is especially useful when working with car dealerships where large numbers of similar vehicles are being done on a regular basis. We have covered a great variety of techniques in this video. Once you have reviewed and understand the basic principles and begun to put them into practice, it won't be long before you'll be able to use your own creativity to make excellent and reliable patterns. Need additional information? We hope you have enjoyed and found useful this training program from CP Films. If you have any questions and need additional information on LLumar paint protection film or other LLumar film products, please contact your LLumar distributor or CP Films with the information on your screen.